Okay, I'm just going to wait a couple of minutes to make sure we get everybody in here, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, we're just going to go ahead now. Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining our May California Brokers Business Accelerator on Proposition 19, Homeowners Property Taxes, hosted by Tom Bullock, but also featuring Michelle Beeson and Ryan Rosas. I want to quickly remind you of a wonderful product from Sharp TC, our in-house transaction coordinators. Sharp TC will not only be your transaction coordinator throughout your entire transaction from start to finish, but when your transaction closes, your clients will receive a closing gift box directly from you, but you don't have to lift a finger. Sharp TC does all the work. Each transaction with Sharp TC is only $400, but you can get your first transaction done for $250. Today's webinar is sponsored by Movement Mortgage. We do have 3 loan officers available to you, John Solik, Cheryl Zensky, and Trisha Hamilton. So if you guys want to reach out to them, their information is on the screen here, but we also have their information on the app under our preferred vendor section. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Remember, if you have any questions during this presentation, you can type them in the chat box on your Zoom control panel, and we will do a Q&A at the end of this presentation. But I'm now going to pass it over to our brokers, starting with Tom. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning. Hope everybody's doing well. We're going to be talking today about Proposition 19. But before we get started with that topic, I have asked Michelle if we could just get a little more detail regarding the newly changed policy regarding open houses in the state of California, and what we really need to be careful about. So Michelle, if you'll take it from there.
Yes, I will. Thank you, Tom. Good morning, everyone. So here is the guidance as of, I believe, last week when it changed. So generally now, during COVID, you were not allowed to advertise using the terms open house because that was considered false advertising because you needed appointments and staggered appointments. But for now on, you can advertise using the term open house. There are no longer appointments required for open houses. So you can have your 4-hour, 5-hour block of open houses, and you can let people come in as they arrive, but there are some qualifications and requirements that they need to do. So you don't need to only let one group in at a time. You can let multiple groups in at a time, but there needs to be social distancing between groups. So each little family member group can be in and another family member group can be in, as long as there is 6 feet distance between the 2 groups. So I want to make sure that's very clear. And we do still have capacity restrictions. So you're going to take the lesser of the 2. It's either, right now we're in orange tier, I believe, in all counties around us. And that is a maximum of 25 for indoor gatherings, which means you cannot have more than 25 people in your open house at a time. Or if a house does not even allow, as long as that 25 allows for 6 feet social distance. So make sure you have the lower number of the 2, either a maximum of 25 or the maximum amount allowed, that will still satisfy the 6 feet distance requirement. So also all parties entering need to still wear face masks indoors, even if they're vaccinated. So the vaccinations don't change this requirement yet. They are also required to sign in. Now, Car Forms has updated, Zip Forms has updated all of their forms, and you can find all of the forms that they require or that have been changed now live on Zip Forms. And there is a sign-in sheet that everybody coming in needs to sign. So you're going to have that at the entrance. They need to sign the sign-in sheet. And in the sign-in sheet, It is verifying that they have not been exposed or not, experienced symptoms of COVID. You also need to replace your old posted rules for entry with a new posted rules for entry that outline these revised guidelines. So if you haven't done that already, you can download the posted rules for entry from zip forms and replace the old pictogram sign with this new one. And you'll be, adhering to the current guidelines. You don't need to create your own sign-in sheet. If I didn't say it already, there is a sign-in sheet available on zip forms for you as well. And then about the PEDS. So if you haven't noticed, we now have a PED all. So before you had to make sure each address or multiple addresses, but the addresses had to be on your PED Vs. Now there's a form called the PED all. So it basically applies, you can just have your client sign it and you can provide that PED to all of the listings that you're going to. You can also provide the PED at an open house. However, if you have the sign-in sheet, you are not required to have a PED from everybody entering the open house. So you can still use the PED. You should still use the PED for showings. I still recommend, although they haven't been 100% clear on the guidance, but we still recommend that those PED alls are signed within 24 hours of showing, because things can change day by day as far as certifications. But you do not have to have a PED for every visitor at your open house. You do have to have them sign in certifying that they are not sick. And other than that, the cleaning protocols have changed a little bit. You do not have to clean before and after each showing. The property has to be cleaned once a day. And those are the rules. So what you can do is discuss those requirements with your homeowners if they are living at the property, and you can in the listing agreement say that they're responsible for the cleaning once a day, or you as the listing agent can clean after the open house is done. But we do want to ensure that the property is properly cleaned, but it only needs to be once per day. So we don't need cleaning in between like we had before. The only other thing they recommend is that when you're doing an open house, that you open doors and windows as long as weather permits, so you have a consistent circulation of fresh air. So that's it for me. If anyone has any questions, you can type them in the chat, and Tom, we'll go back to you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Michelle. Good presentation.
Mhm.
I'm talking today about, and made our topic, Proposition 19. Now, the purpose of my selecting this topic is not to make each and every one of you experts on Proposition 19. As you've heard all three of your brokers talk about, we should never give legal advice, as we are not attorneys. Likewise, we should never give tax advice to our clients because we're not tax specialists, number one. And number two, we don't know the individual that we're talking to, what their tax situation is. So we should never give tax advice to our clients. But the point of this today is just to give you a general idea as to what is Proposition 19, how is it different from the previous Proposition 60 or Proposition 90, and how should sellers moving forward, what should they do to see how they qualify for this new program, Proposition 19. So the general rule regarding Proposition 19 is, if a child or grandchild qualifies the home as a primary residence, then the original tax table value of the property for that child or grandchild will remain the same as to the parent, unless the following applies. So in essence, if the grandparent assigns and transfers ownership of the property and title to the property to the child or grandchild, the tax table will remain the same. However, there are exceptions to that. Whereas with Proposition 60 and Proposition 90, the value of the new home or the transfer had to be the same or lesser value. But the exceptions to Proposition 19 are as follows. If the assessed value of the family home is more than 1 million over the original taxable value, then the new taxable value will increase. Now, for example, assume the taxable value on a family home is 2 million and the original taxable value was 500,000. Because 2 million is more than the 1 million above the original taxable value, the new taxable value will increase. So if a new taxable value will be the new assigned value minus $1 million, in this case, 2 million minus 1 million equals 1 million, and that's the new taxable value. So to hopefully try to simplify that, if the grandparents purchased the home for 500,000, and because of today's market, the current value of the home is $2 million, and the grandparent transfers that home to the child or the grandchild, then, and the value of the original home is over, the current value of the original home is over 2 million or over 1 million, then there will be a reassessment. So you would, in my example, you would take the $2 million current value, subtract the $1 million limit, which gives us a remaining value of $1 million. So the taxable value would raise from the original price, 500,000 up to $1 million. And that's what the child or grandchild would be paying with respect to Proposition 19. Now, there are some real benefits to this from the point of view that in the past with Proposition 60 and Proposition 90, the transferable value in terms of tax value was only in the county the primary home was sold, or if other counties within California accepted that tax transfer, then it would apply to those counties as well. But with Proposition 19, a seller who is selling their property and wants to move that tax value to a new location anywhere in the state, they will have the ability to do that. And that, before they would have limits on the taxable value. So if a person sold a home, say in San Diego, and moved up to Santa Barbara, then they would be able to move that tax value if Santa Barbara County accepted that transfer and buy a home in Santa Barbara and have their old tax value. But the tax value of the property in Santa Barbara would have to be at or less than the sale price of the home being sold in San Diego. So now with the new Prop 13, the tax value doesn't come into play. So number one, you can transfer and buy a home anywhere in the state of California and have that taxable value of the sold property transferred anywhere in the state. And number two, whoever the seller is, they can go into another county anywhere in the state and buy any home, regardless of the sale price, and have the qualification for this taxable value. So there are guidelines and there are ratios that have to be followed with Prop 19 and how it might or might not apply to the seller of the property, the grandparent. But taxable values can now transfer anywhere in the state. In the past, Prop 13 or 60 and 90 could only be used once in a lifetime. Now under Prop 13, depending on the situation, under normal conditions, a seller can move that taxable value up to 3 times. Now there are exceptions to that when it comes to extreme situations. For example, if the original home were destroyed by natural causes, a fire, an earthquake, any other natural cause, they'll have the ability, the seller would have the ability to transfer that tax base unlimited amount of times. And and they have to do that replacement value within 2 years from the point of selling their home. So keep in mind that, you know, who's qualified for this? Well, the people who qualify for this taxable value transfer would be homeowners 55 and over, or severely disabled whose homes were destroyed by wildfire, fire, or natural disasters may transfer the taxable value of their primary residence. Again, they can be transferred anywhere in the state, regardless of the location, regardless of the value of the replacement primary value, and within a 2-year period from the selling of the original residence. Although there are no limits, again, to those homes or houses that were destroyed by wildfire, fire, or natural disasters. And these rules for Prop 19 became effective on and after April 1st, 2021. I've got a few more things here, but just to break this up a bit, Ryan, do you have anything you want to add?
Hey, Tom. No, I know basically everyone that it gets really complicated when it comes to taxes. And there's a lot of information. Tom went over a lot of information. So the biggest piece of advice that I can add is just to, if somebody has a question on this, today's panel is really about your knowledge, not for you to provide advice to your clients. They should really be seeking the advice of a tax attorney, of a CPA, of somebody who can help them understand what this is going to do and how it's going to affect them. That's all I'll have, Tom.
Yeah, Michelle, do you want to add?
Hold on, I had to get up. I was muted. No, I actually don't have anything to add either. You covered all the basics. And again, just like Ryan and Tom said, we're not experts at taxes. So we can answer very basic questions, but it's not hard to find information on this. So just tell your clients, hey, it's a possibility for you, especially if they're disabled or were affected by wildfires. They may not know it's a possibility. So just, you can bring it up to them, but it's not your responsibility to explain it. It's your responsibility to tell them to seek advice from the proper, channels.
Okay, thank you. So I'm just going to end with intergenerational family transfers and as well family farms. Keep in mind that when a grandparent transfers the title of their property to a child or grandchild, the main requirement for that is that child or grandchild must live in the property as their primary residence. They cannot take new title and preserve the taxable value if they are not living full-time as their primary residence with the subject property. So that's an important rule that a seller would need to be aware of, as well as the child or grandchild. So, I know we covered a lot, and like both Ryan and Michelle stated, it's not complicated once you get into it and read it. But again, as I stated in the beginning, we do not want you to be tax experts with regards to Proposition 19. If you want to get into more detail so you have a better or more thorough understanding, please go to car.org, and CAR website has a whole section regarding Prop 19 and what the requirements are, what the formulas are with respect to how it applies to the individuals involved, and what's needed to qualify for the acceptance of a Prop 19 within the state of California. CAR did support this proposition when it was voted on this past fall, and they continue to support it. So the rules have changed. How does it affect sellers, generally speaking? That's not for us to determine. What's for us to determine is that the seller needs to be given notice that if they're applying for this, they need to work with their tax consultant, not us as real estate agents. So with that, I'm going to end. Carly, is there any questions?
Our first question here is, I have a seller who has a manufactured home on land. Would she be able to transfer her taxes to a single family home?
I don't believe there's any different. I think it's just a matter of the key operative word is primary residence. Now, whether that's a single family home, a condo, a townhome, a manufactured home, I think the key guideline for this is that it be the primary residence. But again, that's not a question that we should be answering. And you know, if that question comes up to you as agents, then you need to kind of take a step back and say, you know, we're really not qualified to answer this because we don't know how it pertains to that buyer. So that buyer needs to go to their tax consultant and broach that question. You know, again, we not knowing, you know, we all know that buyers sometimes or sellers sometimes don't tell us everything. And so for us as agents to try to take the position of, yeah, I know all about Prop 19 and this is how it applies to you, we can't say that because we don't know their tax situation. We don't know if they own second homes, third homes, and how that comes into play. So again, anytime you're asked questions about details about Prop 19, we must refer that client to their tax consultant. You know, we can give a general description of Prop 19, you know, and just taking a step back here, you know, how many of us really knew what Prop 60 and Prop 90 was all about? You know, I mean, my take on it is that if I were to ask 10 agents about to please explain Prop 60 and Prop 90 to me, they wouldn't know what I was talking about. So, you know, my feeling is Prop 19 is going to be kind of the same way. So if somebody comes to you asking legal advice, our response is you need to consult with an attorney for that question. Same is true with Prop 19. That's a specific question which I'm not qualified, nor can I answer. Please go to your tax consultant. That is the best course of action and the best road to go down with respect to this topic.
Okay, and our next question is, does it still have the 2-year time frame to do this?
As I understand it, yes. That from the time a seller sells their prime and they qualify for Prop 19, in other words, they're 55 or over, they have a severe disability or their home was destroyed by a natural disaster, then from the time the home sells to they have a 2-year window. Actually, if any of the 3 items I just mentioned, and you can see this gets a little complicated, then they have an unlimited amount of time to move forward. But if a normal situation occurs where a 55-year-old sells their property, then they have a 2-year window to find replacement property and transfer their taxable value.
Okay, and the last question we have so far is, any ideas on how to use Prop 19 to get more listings?
I actually have a little bit on that. There is one thing that you could use. So Car has a sample letter that you could send out to like past clients. I mean, I'd be careful sending things out to, you know, people in general if you don't know their specifics, but certainly there's a sample letter in Car that kind of goes over the basics of Prop 19, just to let them know that, for instance, if you have senior home sellers that are afraid to move because they don't want to pay higher taxes, even though the house no longer works for them, you could send out this sample letter that I can put a link to in the chat. That might be, you know, a good idea. But again, be careful sending things out just randomly, because you don't want to imply that, you know, hey, you can move your property taxes to somebody that they simply can't, you know. So that's where you have to be careful, I would say, right, Tom and Ryan? I would
Yeah,
think,
I
yeah.
agree 100%. You know, to send out random postings as to, you know, call me regarding Prop 19 or I'm the Prop 19 expert, you have to be careful about that because we're not Prop 19 experts. Number one, it's a brand new program. It's a brand new proposition that replaces two propositions that were with us for decades almost. So Prop 19 is, we got to be careful in how we present it. You know, if you're in a listing presentation and somebody says, well, I'm 55 or older, if I sell my home, you know, what's my, can I move this anywhere? Well, the answer to that is, yeah, you know, per Prop 19, you can buy a new home anywhere in the state of California and have your taxable value transferred. There are exceptions to that. And when it comes to removing your taxable value 100%. Now, there may be an increase depending on what you purchase. You can buy a home more expensive than the original home that we're talking about, or you can buy a home same or lesser value. And under each of those conditions are different guidelines that have to be followed, and how that may or may not affect your transfer of that value. So, you know, again, marketing to the general public, we have to be very, very careful and not project ourselves as being experts in a taxable area any more than we can project ourselves as being expert in a legal area. So, so you just need to be careful about that.
Okay, awesome, guys. Thank you. It doesn't look like we have any more questions, but of course, you guys know, agents, if you have any questions moving forward, you can contact your brokers directly about anything that has to do with this, of course. So I just want to say a thank you to our brokers for all of your wonderful insight, and a special thank you to Tom for organizing today's topic and presentation. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us today, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week. Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
All right.